Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's show. I'm Jesse Estevez, your host of Everyday Life Latino Talk. Wishing you and your family a Happy New Year 2019. And may all your dreams come true for this new year. Neighborhood gangs have been around for decades. Both men and women of all ages join gangs for a variety of reasons: identity, recognition, protection, brotherhood, a sense of belonging, family history, or tradition. Our guest tonight will share with us his personal testimony of living in the barrio as a gang member and how God called him to be a minister and pastor of his own church, Calvary, Northeast Los Angeles in Highland Park, California. Please help me welcome my good friend, Pastor Jose Pep Montenegro. Pastor Pep, how are you?
Good. I'm doing real good.
Good to see you, man. You look great.
Thank you. You too. Good to
You
see you
look awesome.
too.
Now,
Thank you.
we have been friends for 37 years.
Yes.
And we have, really grown up in the same neighborhood.
Yeah, right there in Highland Park.
And we haven't spoke to each other in about that much time.
I am full-time in the ministry now, there with the church in Highland Park. I got to travel a little bit last month. And things are good. I started riding my bike again, getting the exercise going, so things are well.
Awesome.
Thank you
and
so
you
much.
recently retired, correct?
I did retire. I didn't want to say that, but I did retire.
Yes.
I'm just getting used to it now.
Right.
Because I've worked for 20-something years.
20-something years.
And I was able to retire last month.
So now you're full-time in ministry now?
Full-time in ministry, yeah.
Great.
That is correct.
Okay, great, Pastor. Tell us a little bit about where you grew up and about your family and where you went to school and so forth, and then we'll get started.
Yeah. I was born in General Hospital. And you know, like the song says, born in East LA, right? So I was born in East LA, General Hospital.
Right.
Lived in, East LA, as a child, little baby, and then moved to El Sereno and then to Highland Park. And went to Yorkdale Elementary School there. And then Luther Burbank Middle School. And,
yes.
and then I went to Franklin for a whole 2 weeks.
Why 2 weeks? Why 2 weeks?
Well, they said I assaulted a teacher. So when, they expelled me. Then I ended up going to Eagle Rock High School for 2 months, and then I dropped out of high school.
You dropped out of high school after that?
Yeah.
And you never went back to school after that?
I did go back to school, actually. I dropped out of high school. I went to about 5 different high schools. I was up in Sacramento for a while. My dad tried to help me. I was incorrigible, as they say. So I went to Washington High School in Sacramento, a couple of continuation high schools,
correct,
and Apple Valley High School. But I went back to high school and I finally graduated a year later. I should have graduated when I was 17, but I graduated when I was 18.
Correct.
Just because of the way I was living and the bad choices that I had made.
Bad choices. And, we're going to get into that just a little bit.
Yeah.
Share with us a little bit about how you became involved in gangs and what made you say, I want to get in, I want to do this.
Yeah. Well, my mom was 18 when I was born. So she was a young mom. She was single, and she was trying to figure out life for herself, being that young and then having a child. I was the firstborn of, there's 4 of us. So as she was trying to raise me and all, she was working real hard. She was living her life. I remember getting up at 4 or 5 in the morning with her, and she would, when we lived in El Sereno, and she'd get on the bus and go to work at Clifton's, that restaurant over there. So I think about the age of 11, I had free time. And those were the days in the 70s, and you may remember those days where you could go play all day, and then your mom would yell, "Mijo, Pep," and then you'd come inside, and they would just yell, and then you come in. Or when it started to get dark, or the certain lights went on, then you go home. And I had a lot of free time, so when I was about 11, I started experimenting with drugs. So I started with marijuana. 12, I was drinking alcohol and marijuana, and I started dabbling in that lifestyle. And I had the bald head, the buzz haircut when I was 12, and white T-shirt and the khaki colored pants, and those shoes we called winos.
Winos,
you remember
yes,
those?
Of course, yes.
So I was starting to do that. I wasn't a gang member, but I was claiming a certain gang.
Well, there's a certain tape that I was watching, and I got some information. You were at Biola University?
Yes,
The
Biola.
chapel. You were giving a sermon, I believe?
Yes, sir. I was doing my a narrative of my life
Your
at
narrative
Biola
of your life,
University.
yes.
They asked me to speak there.
And you mentioned something about your mom that
Yeah.
she would have you do your bed.
Right.
And if you didn't do it a certain way,
Right.
she would flip a nickel, and if the nickel went somewhere,
Yeah.
you had to do it over. Share with
Yeah,
us about
she
that.
was teaching me how to fix a bed, and I was probably about 5 years old.
5 years old.
And if I didn't fix it, this happened that one time I remember where she messed it up again. And God bless my mom. She goes to our church. She's a wonderful lady, and she was just trying to teach me how to do things.
Correct.
And you know, if the bed wasn't fixed right, this one particular time she messed the bed up and says, "Do it again."
Right.
So I had to make sure it was tight and nice and you know,
Right.
appropriate. So I learned how to fix a bed. I don't fix my bed all the time now, but I do most of the days.
Most of the days.
Yeah.
Yeah. You also mentioned in that tape that you were from a certain gang.
Right.
Right. And that your
Yeah.
cousin.
Right.
Said, hey, you know what? You're going to be in junior high now. You
Yes.
you need to dress a certain way.
Right.
You need to wear this and that. Talk to us a little about your
Yeah.
cousin and what he made you do.
Well, you know, it was 6th grade at Yorkdale Elementary School, and then I was going into junior high school. So at that age, folks, guys, gals are looking for their identity. Who am I? Am I going to be a surfer, a skater dude? Am I going to be a pothead? Am I going to smoke dope? Am I going to be a cholo? So between 6th and 7th grade, one of my cousins said, hey, you're going to Luther Burbank. You're going to go to junior high. You need to get rid of that David Cassidy hairdo and that long hair, and you need to, you know, change your style up a little bit because you're going to junior high school. So my cousin, I won't say his name.
Right.
I just saw him last Sunday, by the way.
Okay.
He says, you need to change. So we went down Figueroa to Peoples and then to the, I forget, Peoples and Canada, where we bought certain shoes. We went and got some khakis, and the next thing I know, I got a buzz haircut, and I'm looking like a little cholo dude. And he said because I was going to junior high school. And there I was at Yorkdale, at Luther Burbank, standing there holding up the wall and not knowing why I was doing that.
And what gang were you claiming at that time?
I was a sympathizer for the Avenues.
For the Avenues.
And eventually I got jumped into Cypress Avenues.
You got Cypress
Yeah,
Avenues.
when I was 13.
What was your nickname as a gang member?
Oh man, hopefully no one comes looking for me, but they call me Veneno, poison from Avenues.
From the Avenues.
Yeah, so I got jumped in when I was 13, and I got Avenues tattooed on my chest. I had it right here between my fingers, Avenues, and I have a couple little tattoos of my commitment, my dedication, to the Avenues.
To the gang.
Yeah, very committed to that neighborhood.
Also, you mentioned a friend, Eddie.
Yeah.
Talk to us about Eddie.
Yeah.
Talk
Well,
about him.
he's a real guy. So, so I was just walking down the hill. You talking about that time?
Yes.
Yeah. I was going up the hill to play Hot Wheels
Right.
at my aunt's house with
Right.
my cousin Henry. That's a real guy. And I was going to play Hot Wheels with Henry, and then this guy came out of the bushes and he said, "Hey, Pep, I got something for you." So he stuck his hands in his pocket and he pulled out his hands, and I was 11, and he was probably 14, 13, a little bit older than me. And I thought he had some Hot Wheels maybe because he stuck his hand in his pocket and he kept his hand closed. And I'm thinking this guy has a new Hot Wheel and he don't want to show me. He goes, "I got something, but you can't tell nobody." I go, what do you mean? It's a Hot Wheel in my mind. And he opened his hand and he had two joints, two marijuana cigarettes. And I remember seeing that movie Reefer Madness, and they would, you're melting if you smoke weed, and you're gonna, whatever, fall apart, or your eyes are gonna fall out, and
Right.
Reefer Madness.
Right.
And I go, I'm not gonna smoke that weed. I'm not gonna do that stuff.
Right.
And he says, it's gonna be okay, man. Just smoke this. So I learned how to smoke marijuana with this guy on Rangeview Avenue, right there in Highland Park.
And you mentioned something about going home. You're walking
Yeah.
down. And
Oh, yeah.
what happened? Tell us-
Well, I
talk to
wear
us about
glasses now, but after smoking pot that day,
Right.
I felt as I was walking down the hill as if I had somebody else's glasses on, and I couldn't, walk real well, and I don't know what happened with that weed I had, but the houses were talking to each other. They were saying, "Look, Pep's in trouble." Not the people in the houses were talking.
The houses were
and they were
talking.
leaning into each other and saying, "Look, Pep's in trouble. His mom's gonna get him." So I didn't want to go in the house. So I went outside and I got my Hot Wheels. I never went to my cousin's house to play Hot Wheels.
Right.
I didn't make it
Right.
because of the use of marijuana.
Right.
And I went down the hill and I started playing in the dirt with my cars and crashing and losing all care for my prized possessions, my Hot Wheels.
When you started smoking pot, weed,
Yeah.
Did you lose sense of who you were and what direction you wanted in your life?
Well, today marijuana it's a hot topic, of course, and I'm not a doctor, but I do know that when I smoke marijuana, my experience is that I lost motivation. I had wanted to be a veterinarian at one time. I wanted to be a forest ranger,
Correct.
but using pot, I lost motivation, and I wanted to escape into smoking pot again, because about 11 years old, as we mentioned earlier, I was alone and I had time to run around the neighborhood, and you're open and susceptible without parental guidance or adult supervision.
Correct.
Make choices in some cases were bad, and smoking pot for me was a bad thing.
Correct.
So I really lost the goal of wanting to be a veterinarian or even a forest ranger.
Correct.
So it did affect me in a negative way.
Talk to us about the time that you visited your dad in prison.
Right.
And share with us, how old were you and what was your experience like going into that prison to go visit your dad?
Yeah, well, my dad, he passed away in 1999 on a Thanksgiving Day. Okay. And I remember being a little kid. This is all I remember. I was maybe 3 years old or something like that. But I remember going to visit him in a prison, which was an open, it wasn't like a lockdown maximum security type of prison, but it was a lower level prison. And I went in there, and I remember seeing a guy. He had some kind of a boa constrictor, and right there, and I just got to meet my dad and talk to him, and I just looked at that, and I thought, wow, my dad is here. We're have to come and visit him in prison. And as a little kid, I just processed that. Like I say, 3, 4 years old. I was at least 3 years old.
Did you visit him after when you were older or not?
No, he got out after a few years.
After a few years.
But I remember that specifically, and I never lived with my dad other than when I was about 14, when I was sent to Sacramento by my mom, because Northeast LA Police Department knocked on the door and they said, "Is this your son?" She said, "Yeah." And they said, "Hey, this guy's going to kill someone or he's going to be killed.
Correct.
Do you have anywhere where he can go?
Correct.
Get him away from Highland Park." And she says, "Well, his dad." And they said, "Well, where's that?" She said, "Sacramento." So I lived with my dad for about 9 months. And he tried to change me, God bless him, but I was already a member of the gang. I had goals. I wanted to make it to kill my first person, to go to prison, to go to San Quentin, and just be involved in the prison life.
The prison life. That was your goal. That was in your mind already to do.
At 14.
At 14 years old.
Yeah.
So from what year to what year were you a gang member of the Cypress Avenues?
I got jumped in when I was 13.
You got jumped in when you were 13.
So I was really enjoying getting high, getting loaded, and learning how to slow dance with hainas, rucas, learning how to dance with the girls.
Right.
Fighting with some of the rival gangs within the Northeast LA area. And I was very dedicated to that. So from 13 to about 15 and a half.
Right.
And I got arrested at 15 and a half, and that's where my life changed.
Arrested at 15, and that's when your life changed. Also, what was your? We mentioned something.
Yeah.
What was your favorite song back then when you were a gang member?
I'm trying to remember. I don't know which one you're thinking about, but one of my favorite songs, I don't know if you're thinking about this one, was Brick House.
Brick House.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the favorite song about Brick House was because I could see all my homeboys right now, and some of them are dead.
Yes.
They're dead. If I name names, they've either been killed or they've died a violent way, something like that.
Yes.
But we would be, maybe it was in Primera Flats where they had the wooden floors and the old projects there.
Correct.
Or right there in Northeast LA, and some of the homeboys would be dancing, slow dancing. All of a sudden, dun, 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 Brick House would come on. And then everybody gets up and start dancing and throwing signs. And to me, it was just a happy song, because I saw all my friends and we were having a good time. There was no violence, and I don't even remember drinking at that time. Just that song, Brick House.
Brick House.
It's almost like if you started playing Brick House right now, I may get up, start, I don't know if I would do that, but it's that Brick House is just a nice, happy song for me. Good memory song.
Right. You also mentioned in that tape, in my notes that I wrote down, was that you had a gun to your face one time. Mm-hmm. You had a machete to your neck. From a rival gang member.
Right.
And tell us what you did and why you did that, and why would you? I mean, you were afraid. You mentioned.
Yeah.
But when that guy had the machete on your throat, what was it you said to this guy, and why?
Well, there was different times, and there's some times that I don't remember. I was either under the influence of marijuana, and it affected me in that way, my memory, short-term memory. Also, I was a strong spray paint, inhalants, gasoline, spray paint, any type of inhalant, but mostly the 5-star clear acrylic. And we'd sniff paint. So a lot of times I was out of my mind. PCP was happening, smoking PCP, marijuana, spray paint, just doing all that, drinking alcohol, anything that would come our way, and just being a hog for drugs, anything to get high and to just get wrapped up in that. So a lot of stuff I don't remember. There were times, one time I remember a guy told me that he actually came to where I was at a meeting in church, and he says, "Hey, are you Pepe?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "You're so-and-so, you're from the Avenues?" I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Do you remember me?" And I looked at him, I said, "No." He says, "Yeah, you put a gun to my face." And he's so many years ago. And so I looked at his hands. I made sure that he didn't have a gun in his hands. I said, "This guy come back to get me or something."
Right.
But he goes, "No, I'm cool." He says, I gave my life to God as well. So that was good to see and good to hear. But there's other times where I have had guns to my face and guys, "Where are you from?" And I wouldn't rank out, as we say. One time a car drove up and a guy pulled a gun right at me and one of my friends and said, "Where are you from?" And we stepped toward the car and we said our neighborhood. "This is where I'm from," I said. And we said the neighborhood, we said our names. And then the guy came out from the shadows of the car and says, "I'm just checking, Holmes, making sure you don't rank out." So that was one time. Another time we were in a party right by about Avenue 50, maybe Avenue 52, 53 by the railroad tracks. And we went outside. One of my friends had to relieve himself. He went to the restroom. And this guy's also, he died overdose of drugs. Mm-hmm. But we went outside and he went outside and then he hadn't come back for a while. So I was concerned about my homeboys. I was very, I try to be around and protect guys and try to be that kind of person. So he hadn't come back. So I went outside and I saw about 7, 8, I don't know, I don't like to exaggerate, but there was at least 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 guys had surrounded him. And I didn't know it at the time, but as they surrounded him, and it was nighttime, we're partying, I go outside and I get in the circle because I see him and I look and I get in the circle and they have a machete, a big old machete up to his throat. And he's standing there, he's not saying anything. And then I come in and another dude pulls out a machete and puts it up to my throat. He says, "Where are you from, ese?" And I leaned into him and I said, "I'm from the Avenues." And then he said his neighborhood. And then I said my neighborhood. He said his neighborhood. I said my neighborhood. And it went back and forth 2, 3 times, no more than 4 times. And then he just looked and he says, "I'm going to let you guys go, man." And they all dispersed, the circle of guys in the nighttime by the railroad tracks, right, where it could have ended right there.
Could have ended right there.
Yeah.
You also mentioned that you had got into a car accident on Whittier Boulevard.
Right.
You had just stolen a vehicle.
Right.
So time passed and you went to court.
Right.
Tell us about what the judge said and what your reaction was. Please share with us.
We stole a Volkswagen, maybe an Eagle Rock, but I know we stole a nice 62 Volkswagen. They were easy to steal. We stole that, cruising on Whittier Boulevard. We crashed because we're sniffing spray paint, inhalants, right? It was popular, and maybe they still do it today. We crash, we get arrested, I get a little case going. I go to this rehab home for 2 weeks, and I leave. I forget about it, right? It's done, went to rehab. So I'm back in the neighborhood and getting loaded, doing the same thing and all, fighting, this and that. So then I go to court. So I go to court and the judge says, "Okay, well, Grand Theft Auto, weapons and drugs." And I'm thinking, "Orale, I'm going to camp, Afro-Ball, Rocky, Months. I'm going somewhere, but I'm starting my career to go do time." This is what I'm thinking as a 15-year-old guy. Mm-hmm. And the judge says, "What I would like you to do, young man, is go back to that rehab program that you were at up in the high desert." In my mind, I'm saying, "No, I don't want to go to rehab. I want to go to camp where my homeboys are at and be right there, walking on the yellow line, the red line, the white line, and whatever you're doing in juvenile hall or camp." And I went to a drug rehab program at 15 and a half. Mm-hmm. It was a men's program, right, and I was the youngest guy. I was a minor in a men's rehab program.
And also on that, I mentioned that you had mentioned in that tape that, your purpose in life was to go to jail,
right,
join a mafia, and be there for life.
Yeah.
And who knows where else you would be. Share a little bit about that.
Well, I didn't see a lot of successes around me. I didn't see a lot of success. I didn't see a lot of families doing well. I saw addictions. I saw alcoholism. I saw domestic violence. I saw family members involved in gangs, whether it was a motorcycle club or whether it was a street gang or if people were selling drugs. So I saw this not just within my family, respectfully, but within the community. I remember right when we moved to 5612 Rangeview Avenue, the neighborhood kids got me and said, hey, let's go down to this block. There was a gang fight there a couple days ago and somebody died. So we went to where this person had died, and we saw the blood, the thick blood that they didn't, spray down the blood, and we saw this. So this was around me, and it started to just make an impact on my life. And that's what I thought that I was supposed to do, because again, without parental supervision and the family's doing something else and you're running around the neighborhood. And it didn't just happen back in the 70s. There's still kids these days running around the neighborhood, running around the streets, no parental supervision whatsoever. Divorces in the family, and the parents are arguing and fighting, and the kids are left alone to do whatever they want to do.
So you're in the men's home. Right. And there, right when you're there, God touches your life. And changes you. Talk to us about that. How did that happen, and what was the experience? What did you feel, Pastor?
Well, I get what I thought was core committed to this ranch. So I'm up there for about a month. Well, for that whole month, I was still smoking. We would do store runs in the van, and I'd go and I stole some cigarettes when they used to have cigarettes on the counters. So I stole some cigarettes, got some matches, and I'd still leave the main compound area and go behind a tumbleweed back in the desert and still smoke a cigarette. I went to the tool shed where they had chemicals, and I got a little towel, and I would put chemicals in there, and I was still sniffing and still getting high, and going to the program and looking in the program, and these guys giving us the study, and then I was like loaded and high. And it took me a month hearing stories, one guy missing an eyeball, another guy missing his teeth, another guy missing 2 fingers, another guy lifted up his shirt and showed me 5 bullet holes, another guy out of prison for murder. And I'm looking at this, and they're telling me, hey, youngster, do you want to be like us? And, I always say I was a vato loco, but I wasn't stupid. So I heard these stories, and I listened, and I started the process. Do I really want to be toothless, fingerless, missing an eye, bullet holes? Do I really want that? And it was there that I started to think, and I believe God, through His Spirit, started to get a hold of me and speaking to me and saying, hey, man, you can be a different person. You don't have to live like that.
Can we talk a little bit, Pastor Pep, the following service awards, share a little bit about them, just briefly. First of all, the Angel Award.
Yeah, the Angel Award was something that was given many years ago through a TV program that was like a testimony of my life. And it was a dramatization of me running through an alley and getting beat up, and me stealing a car, getting shot at, me breaking into a house. So it was really, I guess it was done really well, because we were given this Angel Award for this TV program, which was Treasures Out of Darkness. So we got the Angel Award for that, and I have one at my house right now. It's really cool to have that.
Also, the Young Man of the Year Award.
That was done at a church, at the Victory Outreach Church, years ago at a banquet, and I was given the Young Man Award there just for improvement in my life and who I was.
And then also I read that you were the 103rd most influential person in Orange County.
Well, 3 times. They have, I believe it's the 103 top most influential people in Orange County or Newport Mesa, Newport Beach, Costa Mesa. So I was, I think the highest I got may have been like number 27 or something like that. So that was 3 times I got in there. And all that was for the work I was doing. And I was working on the west side, Costa Mesa, with an awesome lady, Lynn Bloomberg. I'll give her name. Shout out to Lynn. And we were doing street work and family work and helping families that were involved in gangs and drugs and educational failures.
And you also emceed the annual Riverside County May is Mental Health Month. 5 different times.
Yes. It's 4 or 5 times, but they would simply ask me to come back and do and MC their event. It's an annual event because we know May is Mental Health Month, and that's throughout the state of California, and it could be national by now, but I was able to do their big event and MC that.
And then also you were the founder of Ghost.
Yes, Ghost.
Ghost,
There
is that
you
correct?
go. Yeah,
Share
you got
a
it.
little bit about that.
GHOST stands for Gang Outreach Educational Strategies and Training. So I started that. It was for profit. It wasn't a non-profit. Just starting a business based out of the city that I live in now, and I was able to put up gang trainings. I've had people that were former mafia members, former co-founders of a motorcycle club. Even that movie Colors, Tony Moreno, Pac-Man was one of my guests at the trainings. So if anyone's ever seen the movie Colors, I had the real guy, Tony Moreno. He was one of our guest speakers.
Nice.
And we've taken Ghost to even the island of Bermuda, and we spoke in every single prison and juvenile facility on the island of Bermuda.
Nice.
We were on national radio, syndicated, the government radio station. Just a lot of fun stuff with Ghost.
In these last minutes that we have, Pastor, any last words?
Well, I think we need to dream. I think we need to dream and have big dreams and be excited about life and know that doesn't matter where we come from, doesn't matter our obstacles, doesn't matter what's troubling us, that we can overcome and that we can make it in life, that we're able to do some great things. I mean, you with this TV and hosting this thing, this is awesome to be part of this stuff. Whether it's starting a church, whether it's getting your education, leaving the drugs, leaving the alcohol, leaving the gangs, there's a lot of hope. Leaving depression, leaving anxiety, there's a lot of hope today. And I find that hope in God.
Yes. I want to thank my guest, Pastor Pep Montenegro. Wow, what an amazing testimony. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Jesse Estevez, your host of Everyday Life. Until next time, good night, everyone.